Well, it is 2022 and we have another pantry tour to show you guys, whoever you guys may be. I thought at first that we were only going to be making these videos for ourselves to watch for our own entertainment, but it appears that there's other people that could have some sort of interest in watching it too. So we don't have, as you can see, a ton of jars. We have a few. I would say we haven't really grown a lot more than what we did last year or preserved in jars here, but I'll just go through what we have here. This year our garden was amazing. We had a very late start, like most people did in our province, because of flooding, and just the spring took a long time to come. We started a lot of our own plants, and that was actually a really good experience, and we ended up having just an amazing pepper harvest, and everything did well. And I was really excited about the garden, and every day I would walk through the garden and just be so excited about all the things that were growing. And then I got pregnant in August, and it was like as soon as I got pregnant I started feeling sick and I wanted nothing to do with the garden. And that was really hard because, you know, that's the time of year where you need to start harvesting and preserving and canning, and I just had no energy and no desire to do it. So I did get these things on the shelves and I let a few things rot, but we ended up preserving most of our food that we grew and we're super grateful for it. So I'll just give you a quick tour. We have obviously a lot of tomato products here. We grew a bunch of tomatoes this year again. And we've got some hot salsa, the same tried and true recipe I always use, which is my mom's. It's the best. And so I think I have large jars here and smaller jars. My thought was if I have extra canning, if I have extra salsa. Actually last year we didn't have enough to last us all year. So this year I made a little bit more salsa and less pasta sauce because we had pasta sauce left over. And down here we've got the pasta sauce. I think there must be some, yeah, this is also pasta sauce here, but I didn't make as much as I made last year because we might even still have 1 or 2 jars from 2021. So, and we definitely like our salsa. If we've got extra, we can give it away, sell it. It's nice to have more than you need so you can be generous with it. Down here, we have some pickled jalapenos. And actually there's red pepper in here too, which we grew. So our peppers, like I said before, were amazing. And I really hope that we can have peppers like that next year too. But it seems like some years peppers just do better than other years. So yeah, these are really very, very, very spicy. So pickles, obviously I talked a lot last year about pickles. Now pickles, these pickles that I just talked so much about and said, oh, this is what I did and what I went through to get this amazing pickle recipe. And I sold a lot of these pickles in our family's farm store this past summer, and I sold out very quickly and people were asking if we had more. So they were a massive hit. Whoever tried them loved them. So I just made the same recipe again, and I didn't have as many cucumbers this year, so I couldn't make quite the amount of pickles I did last year, but hey, it's way more than we need anyway. And then I also pickled some beans. I had a lot of beans, and I figured these would also be a good seller in the store, and they're also just very delicious. We actually have some pickles from last year still. I totally overestimated the amount of pickles we would need for just 2 people for a year, and so we still have a few jars from 2021. So here we have a few jars of strawberry jam. We actually had friends that had a strawberry farm that they just needed people to come pick among the weeds, and we got strawberries for free, which was amazing. And so I made some strawberry jam. I wanted to keep most of them in the freezer so we could use in smoothies and things like that. So I didn't can a lot, and I ended up giving most of our jam away because we don't eat it very quickly. But we have some strawberry jam. It's always better homemade. So these are beet pickles from 2021 as well. We grew beets. We grew 2 different kinds of beets this year, and I actually let most of them rot. So that was something I didn't freeze any, I didn't pickle any. These pickled beets over here are from my grandma, who again, like the year before, she made extra, and so that was wonderful of her to give those to us. And that's going to be way more than we'll need because Mercer is not going to help me eat them very, very quickly. Oh, this is from last year. I won't talk about it. It's last year's relish. We don't eat a lot of relish. And that's the cool thing about canning and preserving your own food is you just figure out what do you actually eat. And I'm starting to think more about canning and preserving the kinds of foods we actually like to eat instead of just what some people might like. Oh, cucumbers, you should make relish. Well, maybe you shouldn't. Like if you don't eat it very much, then maybe you shouldn't go through all the effort. Maybe you should focus on the things that you actually are going to eat and enjoy eating. Okay, so what else do we have here? We've got some applesauce. A neighbor gave us some apples and I was gonna make apple juice and I don't remember what happened. Something happened and I decided to just scrap it and make all applesauce. So lots of applesauce. Again, this is one of the things that we actually don't really eat very much. Now our son would have some, so that would help. But I'm going to have to find some uses for these because I have quite a bit of it. So one of the ways you can eat applesauce is I've heard it's very good with pork. Now, I have not only heard that it's good with pork, I've also experienced that it's good with pork. The only problem is we don't eat pork that often. I suppose you couldn't have it with chicken. It just wouldn't be the same thing. If you're watching this video, I don't know why you're watching it, but if you're watching it to hopefully get some really good insights on how to can your own food or how to be a homesteader, you might want to find another video. But you can see that I do have pots, and they're very helpful when you're canning. And so you might want to get some of those. And you'll also need jars, so you can find jars. And that's what I have here. I've got a bunch of empty jars. We actually have some potatoes. I forgot to mention the potatoes. We have just a few potatoes left. We didn't grow a ton of potatoes and they didn't get very big, and we don't go through potatoes very quickly. We're just a small family. These have actually lasted, I think I would say they've lasted better than our previous year of potatoes. They are definitely getting a little bit soft. Some of them are sprouting a tiny bit, but it is almost January and it's been several months already, so I'm not too disappointed at all. We grew a bunch of other things that aren't displayed on these shelves. We grew onions. We went through those really quickly. I used a ton of onions for canning, for salsa and stuff like that. It uses a lot of onions and we didn't have to buy any for that. We grew a lot of carrots and I'm still actually working through those in the fridge upstairs, so that's been really, really, really nice. And I have some zucchini in the freezer. I actually let a lot of zucchini rot too in the basement, not good. And we actually grew cabbage this year for the first time, which did actually really well. And I ended up using most of it for sauerkraut and kimchi, which we're keeping at Mercer's family's house because we don't have room. As you can see, I pickled a lot of beans, but I froze a lot as well. And we're almost out of them because we eat a lot of beans. I like to boil them and then saute them in butter and then have a little bit of cheese on them, and they're just so good. We actually grew sweet potatoes this year, just a few, because I had just bought some sweet potatoes in the store and started slips from them. It was a very long process and I ended up getting them in the garden a little late, so I put them in just a small bucket so I could take them inside in the fall. And I didn't really know if anything would be under the soil when we finally pulled the roots up, but we did, and there were just a few, potatoes this long and, an inch thick, and I was thrilled because, this is not a growing zone that you'd typically be able to grow sweet potatoes in. So that was a success, and I'm hoping to do a lot more next year. Okay, so I'm standing right now in our cistern in the basement, and our hope is to eventually turn this into a cold room. So obviously there's some work to do first. We've got to close it in somehow on the top and keep it cool in here, but this seems like it would be really a cool place. So Mercer just built these shelves. We're going to move our jars and our food into here. Right now in here we just are keeping our winter squash that we grew in the garden. So I'll show you those. So we have a few different kinds of squash we grew here, and growing squash in our garden, squash takes a lot of space, and so it was a jungle in there. But we did get some squash. This is about, I would say probably about half of our harvest. We've eaten a number of squash and a number have also gone bad. So I'm not sure what all caused that, but I'm thinking it's probably a combination of some of the squash were not fully ripe when we brought them inside because of our late start. They weren't able to fully ripe before we had to pull them in before the frost. So some of these, as you can see, like this one still has some green. So we just got to watch out for these guys that they don't go bad before we use them. Now, obviously, lots of spaghetti squash, and I like that. But next year I want to grow more butternut squash because I personally like the flavor and I like using these in soups a lot. Basically, I think I've actually only have this one left of the big variety. The other kind of squash we grew is this honey nut butternut squash, and they're very good. They taste really sweet. So that is it for our pantry tour for this year. Thank you for watching. We appreciate it when people just enjoy seeing our little tours that we make. And yeah, we're looking forward to next year and bigger and better things. See you.